My name is Morgan Caldwell, a 32-year-old interior designer from Nashville, Tennessee. I'd spent 8 months planning my dream wedding, obsessing over every single detail: the flowers, the music, the exact shade of ivory for the table linens. My fiancé and I had poured thousands of dollars and countless sleepless nights into creating the perfect day. I just knew my parents would be there in the front row, beaming with pride as I walked down that aisle. But then came the phone call that shattered everything. My father's voice came through the phone flat and cold, like he was reading off a grocery list. They weren't coming to my wedding. Instead, they were taking my younger brother on some fancy trip to the Grand Canyon. A vacation, he said, that was just too good to pass up. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach, knocking the wind right out of me. Every childhood memory came flooding back, all those times I'd been pushed aside, always playing second fiddle to my brother Derek. I stood there in my kitchen, gripping my phone so tight my knuckles turned white, as my mother jumped in with her own pathetic excuses. Her tone was dismissive, like I was being dramatic for expecting them to show up to my own wedding. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was done. Done begging for their attention like some kind of puppy desperate for scraps. Done swallowing the bitter pill of their favoritism and pretending it didn't taste like poison. That night, lying in bed next to my sleeping fiancé, I made a choice. I wasn't going to let their absence ruin what should be the happiest day of my life. I did something bold, something that would make them regret their decision in ways they never saw coming. And when the truth finally came out, when everyone in our small social circle found out what they'd done, it turned their comfortable little world completely upside down. What did I do? Stay with me, because this story is about taking back your power when the people who should love you most treat you like you don't matter. If you've ever felt invisible to your own family, if you've ever been the one left behind while someone else got all the glory, then you'll understand exactly why I did what I did. This is about the moment I stopped waiting for my parents to see me and started making sure everyone else did. Growing up in a quiet Nashville suburb, my childhood started out like something from a storybook. Our brick ranch house sat on a tree-lined street where everyone knew everyone, and life felt safe and predictable. There were backyard cookouts on Saturday afternoons, movie nights on the couch with bowls of popcorn, and my parents cheering loudly at my softball games. My father, Robert Caldwell, worked as an insurance agent, the kind of steady guy who wore khakis every day and never missed a mortgage payment. My mother, Patricia Caldwell, juggled her job as a dental hygienist with running our household, always managing to get dinner on the table by 6 o'clock. My younger brother Derek, 4 years behind me, was my little shadow back then, following me around with his action figures and asking me a million questions a day. We were a solid family unit, or at least that's what I thought until the cracks started showing. I was 10 years old when I first heard my parents fighting late at night, their angry voices seeping through the walls of our house. I'd press my ear against my bedroom door, heart racing, catching words like divorce and custody and starting over. Those fights terrified me in a way nothing else ever had. I'd crawl back into bed and pull the covers over my head, praying they'd work it out. They did stay together, but something fundamental shifted after that. The air in our house felt different, heavier, like storm clouds had moved in and never left. After those fights stopped, my parents changed. They started pouring all their attention into Derek, like he was the glue holding their broken marriage together. It started small, extra bedtime stories for him, new sneakers when mine still had plenty of life left in them. But by the time I hit 11, the favoritism was so obvious it hurt to watch. They'd skip my dance recitals to take him to soccer practice, spending hours watching him kick a ball around while my perfectly executed pirouettes went unnoticed. When I brought home straight A's on my report card, my mother would glance at it and say, "That's nice, honey," before turning her attention back to Derek's mediocre grades, which apparently needed discussing at length. "He needs us more," Mom told me once when I asked why they never came to my school events anymore. That phrase became her go-to excuse, her way of brushing off my disappointment like it was nothing. I tried so hard to make them notice me. I joined the debate team and won first place at regionals. I entered an art contest and took home a blue ribbon. I thought if I just achieved enough, excelled enough, they'd finally see me. But their eyes stayed fixed on Derek, his games, his needs, his every little want. I'd lie awake at night wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough for my own parents to love. The summer I turned 12, I saved up 3 months of allowance money to buy this fancy sketchbook I'd been eyeing at the art store downtown. I spent hours filling it with drawings of room designs, pouring my heart into every line and color choice. When I finally worked up the courage to show my mother, she barely glanced at the pages before saying, "That's nice, Morgan," but I need to help your brother with his science project." My chest tightened as I watched her walk away, and the sketchbook slipped right out of my hands onto the floor. I didn't cry though. I'd already learned that tears got me nowhere with them. So I doubled down instead. I practiced my debate speeches until they were perfect, aced every math test, won every competition I could enter. But every achievement felt like shouting into an empty room. Derek's laughter filled our house while my victories echoed in complete silence. The favoritism wasn't just about attention either. It was about money, time, everything that mattered. They bought Derek a brand new bike for his birthday while I got a card with $20 inside and a pat on the head. When I asked Dad why the difference, he just sighed and said, "He's younger, Morgan. You're strong enough to handle it." Strong enough. Those two words carved out a hollow space inside my chest that never quite filled back up. I started keeping a mental tally of every missed recital, every time they chose his needs over mine, every moment they made me feel invisible in my own home. By 13, I'd stopped asking for their approval altogether, but the hurt stuck around, sharp and unrelenting. I'd watch them cheer at Derek's games, their faces lit up with pride, and feel like a complete stranger standing in the corner of my own family. Those years shaped me in ways I didn't understand back then. I learned to rely only on myself, to build my own world where I mattered. But that sting of always being second best never really faded away. By the time I hit my teenage years, I was completely done trying to win their attention. As I got older, my parents' favoritism toward Derek became impossible to ignore. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, and I couldn't look away. In high school, the gap between how they treated us turned into a massive canyon. My father stayed buried in his insurance paperwork and spreadsheets, and my mother rushed between her dental hygiene shifts and running Derek to every activity under the sun. They funneled all their energy and money into my brother's every whim like he was some kind of prince. When Derek turned 16, they bought him a shiny new Ford pickup truck for his birthday, paid for in full without a second thought. Meanwhile, I got handed the keys to their beat-up old Honda Civic and told I should be grateful. "Morgan, you're responsible," Dad said, like that was supposed to make me feel better about driving a car that needed a new muffler and had a passenger door that stuck. I wasn't asking for a brand new truck, I just wanted them to see me as worth the same investment they made in Derek without question. My senior year, I earned a full-ride scholarship to Vanderbilt University for interior design. I ran home from school that day practically bursting with excitement, expecting at least a small celebration, maybe a cake or a hug or something. Instead, Mom barely looked up from scrolling through her phone. "That's great, Morgan, but Derek's got a huge basketball game on Friday," she said, already mentally checked out of my news. Derek, a sophomore, was the star shooting guard on the varsity team, and my parents never missed a single game. Not one. My scholarship announcement was forgotten by dinner time, buried under conversations about Derek's latest stats and whether they should hire him a private shooting coach. They didn't even ask about my college plans or what I wanted to study. But they dropped $5,000 on private basketball coaching for Derek without blinking. I started feeling like a ghost in my own life, like my achievements were being erased in real time by his spotlight. At 19, I moved out of that house and into a cramped apartment near campus, determined to carve out my own path far away from their suffocating favoritism. I studied until 2 in the morning most nights, worked part-time at a coffee shop to cover expenses my scholarship didn't, and hustled my way into internships with top interior design firms around Nashville. By 26, I'd started my own small business designing spaces for local restaurants and boutique hotels. My first major contract was redesigning the lobby of a boutique hotel in the Gulch, and it felt like the biggest triumph of my life. I invited my parents to the grand opening, secretly hoping they'd finally be proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. Dad sent me a text 2 hours before the event. "Sorry, Morgan. We're at Derek's gym opening." My brother, fresh out of college with a generic business degree, had decided to become a personal trainer. And my parents didn't just support him, they funded his entire startup, from equipment to rent to marketing materials. I stared at that text message standing in the lobby I designed, surrounded by people congratulating me, and felt my heart sink into my shoes. My success meant absolutely nothing to them. Derek leaned right into their favoritism too, soaking up the attention like a sponge. He'd call Mom for advice about his business, and she'd spend 2 hours on the phone with him, laughing and planning his next moves. When I'd call to tell her about landing a new client, she'd cut me off mid-sentence. "Can we talk later? Derek's got an important meeting to prep for." My brother wasn't mean about it, he just never questioned why he got everything while I got excuses. Dad would say things like, "Derek's still figuring things out. You're fine, Morgan. Fine." That word became a knife that twisted in my gut every time I heard it, slicing through whatever was left of my self-worth. I started wondering if maybe I was the problem, if there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made me unworthy of their love. So I pushed harder, taking on bigger design projects, winning local awards from the Nashville Chamber of Commerce. At 28, I was featured in a magazine article about young entrepreneurs making waves in the city. I mailed a copy to my parents, hoping maybe this time they'd react. Weeks went by before Mom mentioned it in passing during a phone call. "Oh, that article was nice," she said flatly, "but did you see the video Derek posted about his new protein powder line?" My brother's fitness brand was taking off, bankrolled entirely by their retirement savings. My awards, my late nights, my blood and sweat and tears, none of it registered with them. I stopped sending them updates after that, but the ache of being invisible just grew heavier and heavier. Each slight built another brick in the wall inside me. I'd lie awake replaying all their dismissals, questioning why I kept trying to win love from people who clearly didn't have any to give me. Later, when I was pushing 30, my design business was really taking off. I was redesigning lobbies for hotel chains across the Southeast, creating these spaces that blended modern elegance with southern warmth, and my work was getting noticed in all the right circles. Every new contract felt like proof that I'd made it on my own terms, that I didn't need my parents' approval to be successful. Those late nights tweaking blueprints and sourcing the perfect light fixtures became my refuge, a way to drown out the voice in my head that whispered I'd never be good enough. When I was 30 years old, I met Cameron Brooks at a design industry mixer. He was a construction project manager with this easy confidence and quick sense of humor that pulled me in immediately. We hit it off talking about nightmare clients and our shared obsession with finding the best late-night diners in Nashville. Our connection grew fast. First dates turned into weekend trips to Chattanooga, his steady presence grounding me in ways I hadn't realized I needed. When Cameron introduced me to his parents, Linda Brooks and Thomas Brooks, I braced myself for polite distance, maybe some awkward small talk. Instead, Linda wrapped me in this warm hug and said, "Morgan, honey, you're family now." Thomas, with his booming laugh and endless questions about my design projects, made me feel valued in a way my own father never had. Their home in Franklin became my sanctuary. Sunday dinners filled with storytelling and laughter, so different from the cold silence I'd grown up with. Their acceptance felt like a balm on wounds I'd been carrying for decades. But I still couldn't let go of my parents completely. I'd call Mom every few weeks, hoping for just a moment of real connection, only to hear her go on and on about Derek's latest fitness studio expansion, funded entirely by their savings, of course. "He's absolutely killing it," she'd say with genuine pride in her voice, barely asking about the hotel project I'd just landed. Dad was just as distant, brushing off my invitations to see my latest work with vague excuses about Derek's packed schedule. I sent them a link to an article about my work in Nashville Lifestyles magazine, thinking surely this would spark some pride. Mom's reply came 3 days later, "Nice job, Morgan," but was swamped helping Derek with his new marketing campaign. Each dismissal cut deeper than the last, hammering home the message that I was still invisible to them. Derek continued basking in their undivided attention, leaning on them for everything while I fought for the smallest scraps of their time. Cameron's family filled the void my parents had created. Linda would call just to check in, asking detailed questions about my projects with genuine interest that made my throat tight with emotion. Thomas shared advice about handling difficult contractors, his gruff warmth making me feel like the daughter he'd always wanted. Their support gave me strength, but it didn't erase the pain of my parents' neglect, it just made it more obvious how abnormal their treatment of me really was. I invited my parents to an industry award ceremony where I was being honored as one of Nashville's top emerging designers under 35. Dad agreed to come, and for a moment, I let myself hope. Then he cancelled last minute, saying Derek needed help negotiating a business loan for his third location. "You'll be fine, Morgan," he said, his voice completely detached, like he was talking to a stranger. I swallowed the hurt, exhausted from years of begging for attention that would never come. Eventually, Cameron proposed on a perfect spring evening under the stars at Radnor Lake, his words simple but unwavering. "Morgan, let's build our future together." My heart swelled with hope, imagining a life where I was actually enough for someone. As we dove into wedding planning, I sent my parents a gorgeous save-the-date card, clinging to this fading wish that they'd finally show up for me, that my wedding would be the moment they realized what they'd been missing. Their response, when it finally came, would push me past a breaking point I never saw coming. One sleepless night, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, I decided I was completely done begging for my parents' attention. The wound from Robert and Patricia choosing a vacation with Derek over my wedding still throbbed like a fresh bruise, but I refused to let it steal my joy. Cameron and I threw ourselves into creating our perfect day at that barn venue in Leaper's Fork, and my design instincts took over. I crafted handwritten vows that took me 2 weeks to get just right, arranged for string lights to create this magical warm glow as the sun set, and designed a space that felt authentically us. My parents' absence stung like hell, but this quiet resolve pushed me forward. This wedding was going to be about the life Cameron and I were building together, not the one my parents had overlooked for 32 years. Linda and Thomas stepped in like the parents I'd always needed. Linda spent entire afternoons with me at flower shops, her gentle guidance easing my stress when I'd get overwhelmed by choices. "Morgan, honey, this day is all yours," she said, squeezing my hand, her smile the steady anchor in the chaos. Thomas tackled vendor negotiations with his no-nonsense approach and dry humor, making sure everything stayed on track and under budget. Their warmth felt like the family I'd been desperately craving my entire life. My best friend Taylor Martinez, a photographer with this incredible gift for capturing raw emotion, offered to shoot the wedding. "I'm going to make this day absolutely shine, Morgan," Taylor said, her enthusiasm infectious and genuine. Friends from college, work colleagues, even some of my design clients rallied around us, their support filling the massive void left by Robert, Patricia, and Derek. I hadn't heard from my parents at all. No calls, no texts, just this deafening silence that spoke volumes. It hurt like a physical ache in my chest, but I channeled all that pain into making our day unforgettable, determined to prove to myself that I didn't need them to feel complete. The wedding morning arrived with perfect Tennessee weather, and I stood in front of the mirror in the bridal suite, my lace dress flowing softly around me. Cameron's eyes met mine when he saw me for the first time, and he said quietly, "You're my everything," which grounded me when I felt like I might fall apart. As I walked down that aisle lined with wildflowers, the crowd of friends, colleagues, and people who genuinely cared about me erupted in cheers and applause. Taylor's camera clicked away, capturing every moment of love surrounding us. Linda's eyes filled with tears as she squeezed my hand at the altar, and Thomas gave me this proud nod that made my throat tight. The absence of my parents was definitely there, this lingering ache I couldn't shake, but the overwhelming joy from everyone else softened it. We exchanged our vows, promising to choose each other every single day, and the applause felt like a warm embrace from the universe itself. The reception was everything I'd dreamed of, laughter bouncing off the barn rafters, music filling the air, people dancing like nobody was watching. It was this vibrant testament to the community that showed up when my own family didn't. As the night wound down and guests started heading home, Cameron and I slipped away to this quiet corner of the property to catch our breath, both of us glowing from the success of our perfect day. I pulled out my phone to check messages from friends who'd already left, my heart still soaring from everything. Then I saw it, my mother's post on Facebook, time-stamped from that very day, just a few hours earlier. Photos of her, Dad, and Derek grinning on the edge of the Grand Canyon, the vast landscape stretched out behind them, captioned "Family Adventure of a Lifetime." #blessed Grand Canyon. The words stabbed into me like a knife, twisting all the joy of my wedding into something bittersweet and complicated. They hadn't just skipped my wedding, they'd broadcast their choice to their entire social network as if I didn't exist, as if I didn't matter at all. I scrolled through the comments from their friends, seeing people congratulating them on the trip, and not a single person mentioned my wedding. The hurt hit me fresh and sharp all over again. Cameron noticed my face fall and pulled me close, his arms solid around me. "They don't define your worth," he said, his voice firm and steady. I nodded, tears threatening to spill over, but his words anchored me. The wedding's success started echoing through Nashville almost immediately. Friends shared photos online, vendors posted about the event calling it magical and unforgettable, and the buzz spread fast through our social circles. I knew Robert and Patricia would hear about it through mutual friends or see it on social media. Their Grand Canyon post, so proudly displayed for everyone to see, now stood in stark contrast to news of my beautiful, joy-filled wedding day. I imagined them scrolling through Facebook, seeing all the photos and comments, maybe wincing as their friends asked why they'd missed such an incredible event. Derek would learn too how my wedding had thrived without any of them there. I didn't want to hurt them out of spite, but I hoped they'd feel the weight of their choice, the consequences of putting me last one final time. The love surrounding me that day, Cameron's unwavering strength, Linda's motherly warmth, Taylor's artistic eye capturing every perfect moment, uplifted me in ways my parents never had and never would. I felt liberated, not by any regret they might feel, but by this bone-deep certainty that I was enough, that I'd always been enough. As we left the venue hand in hand, the string lights still twinkling behind us, I carried this new strength I'd forged from years of being overlooked. The triumph of our wedding, despite Robert, Patricia, and Derek's glaring absence, lit something fierce inside me. Their Grand Canyon post, those smiling photos plastered across Facebook on my wedding day, had cut deep initially. But I was done letting their choices dim my light or control my emotions. Instead, I poured all my energy into building a life that spoke for itself, success that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. Cameron and I settled into our new chapter in a craftsman house we bought in East Nashville, and I leaned hard into my career, determined to make an undeniable mark as an interior designer. The love of my new family, Cameron with his steady support, Linda with her warm encouragement, Thomas with his practical advice, gave me the foundation I'd never had growing up. My design firm evolved from a small operation into something substantial. A major hotel chain on the East Coast noticed my work and offered me a contract to redesign their lobbies in 6 different cities. I spent late nights sketching and revising, blending sleek modern elegance with warm, inviting touches that made people feel at home. Within a year, my designs were featured in Southern Living and Architectural Digest. At a national design conference in Atlanta, I won an award for innovation in hospitality design, my name echoing through the ballroom as I walked up to accept the crystal plaque. "This is for anyone who's ever felt unseen by the people who should see them most," I said in my acceptance speech, my voice steady and clear. Clients started clamoring to work with me, and my firm expanded rapidly. I hired a team of talented designers and project managers to handle the growing demand, moving into a bigger office space in the Gulch. Every project, every award, every new contract felt like another step toward proving my worth, not to my parents anymore, but to myself. The success was mine, built from years of grinding it out and refusing to stay in anyone's shadow. Life with Cameron and his family became this haven I'd never known existed. We hosted dinner parties where friends filled our home with laughter. Linda and Thomas were constants in our lives, Linda hosting Sunday brunches where she'd pore over my latest design sketches with genuine pride. "Morgan, your talent is just extraordinary," she'd say, making me feel truly seen. Thomas offered sharp business advice, helping me navigate the complexities of scaling my firm and managing larger contracts. Their love was unconditional and freely given, such a stark contrast to the conditional scraps I'd fought for growing up. Cameron celebrated every single milestone with me, from signing major contracts to brainstorming sessions that stretched past midnight. "You're absolutely unstoppable," he'd say, his eyes bright with pride. Their support wrapped around me like a warm blanket, filling the void my own family's absence had created. Meanwhile, the fallout from my parents' social media post unfolded exactly as I'd suspected it would. Their photos, posted so carelessly on my wedding day, sparked intense whispers in their Nashville social circle. Friends and acquaintances saw the stark contrast between my radiant wedding, shared through dozens of posts by Taylor and guests, and their flaunted vacation. Mutual contacts reached out to tell me that Robert and Patricia were facing pointed, uncomfortable questions about why they'd skipped their daughter's wedding. Patricia, usually quick with polished excuses, apparently faltered under the scrutiny, her social standing shaken in their tight-knit community. Robert's stoic front cracked as colleagues from his insurance office distanced themselves, their respect for him eroding. Derek's fitness studio took a surprising hit when some clients pulled their memberships, citing his role in the family's choice as evidence of poor character. The community's judgment was swift and harsh, not because I'd called them out publicly, but because their own actions had exposed their skewed priorities for everyone to see. Through the grapevine, I heard that Patricia had broken down at a book club meeting, admitting they'd badly underestimated me and made a terrible mistake. Derek, once untouchable as the golden child, seemed genuinely rattled for the first time, his easy charm no match for the steady stream of gossip and judgment. Their regret was apparently palpable, a consequence they'd brought entirely on themselves by broadcasting their choice so publicly. I made the decision to cut off contact completely, not out of anger or revenge, but to protect the peace I'd finally found. I blocked their numbers, unfriended them on social media, and closed the door on a relationship that had only ever brought me pain. My life with Cameron, my thriving career, and the genuine warmth of his family were more than enough. I felt freed, like I'd finally stepped out from under a shadow that had been blocking my light for 3 decades. My success wasn't about proving them wrong anymore, that chapter was closed. It was about proving myself right, about validating every choice I'd made to build my own path. I'd created a world where I was valued and seen, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was. To everyone who's followed this journey with me, thank you for listening. The lesson here is crystal clear. Your worth isn't tied to people who overlook you, who make you beg for basic love and recognition. Set your boundaries firmly, chase your dreams relentlessly, and surround yourself with people who lift you up instead of tearing you down. Build your own family if the one you were born into can't see your value. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your own stories of overcoming family dynamics that try to keep you small. Share them, connect with others who understand, and let's keep this conversation going. As I moved forward into this new chapter, I carried that hard-won freedom with me every single day, proof that you can thrive even when the people who should love you most choose not to show up.